So this is going to be some of the first of the extricationist abstract drawings and paintings which I am making, which is a new movement of psychic clairvoyance and mediumship, um, which deals with the three modes of deconstructive extraction, rendering decay of the noun, unified precipitation, allowing the field to emerge from the void, and juxtaposed communication, balancing the literal and the energetic, recording the happening and the predictive trace, finding the energetic field, extracting the chambers of the focus of the depth of the noun, and the precipitation of the void, focus on biological conductivity and liquid air. So we're focusing on the fading of what is literal to bring forth like a sort of this navigated illustration of be a field illustrator to redefine the skin of reality to to combining the past, present into the right now of the energy of certain things. Sometimes you can use a focus on an object, or you can just use the abstraction of a blank canvas to translate into the meanings of for your painting. It's and the logic of it is to not wait for an event to occur. You have to record the frequency of what is happening, and to see that permeate on the canvas to bring about a clairvoyant vision that wasn't necessarily there. Where like ghost trails of ripples of individual lines start to bunch together in the bunching relay process to where you start to see things like in this meditative vacuum where we use the psychic relay, whether it's through meditation or through Tai Chi, building up energy, clearing the mind, and allowing the mind and the canvas to merge so that the free flow of the hand is not like automatically, I guess, controlled by a conscious thought, but more sort of vibration. So in essence, it would be like if you were drawing the chair would be there, but it'd be the energy of the chair being built, the energy of the chair being occupied, the energy of the chair being moved around. All these energies to predict like a nonlinear scope of this chair existing in a unified field. And so the extricationalism is you know that we recognize there is no hierarchy of overlays in the design of what is going on right now, but a sort of like a consensus of movements and how we're occupying the juxtaposition of the right now is a way of also becoming like one, becoming a part of it through cognitive relay, in studying vibrational resonance. And then in these drawings, in these art, colors and instantaneous frequency, it has no fixed definition. It's defined by temporal moods and mental dispositions of the moment. It is picked up from the field and used in its relay. Sometimes, they come. These paintings might not necessarily speak out to even the artist itself, but people who visit them through visualizations can understand these art forms' true meaning by their ability to interpret the vibrational feelings in which they get from them. And so, objects are not like necessarily nouns, but they're happenings through precognition, and we sense the ripples of future events before they manifest. We document the verb of the universe, um, and in that, like we capture in a single syntax a direct illustration of the universe, non-linear character. We map the clusters, the overlap, and the bleed. For in the field, there is no distinction between cause and effect. They emerge as an emergent skin as one. So, it's an active process of freeing the consciousness from the static of constructed reality to emerge directly with the unified field. This is the recognition of the supernatural as the standard level of normal. Um, so, as artists, we're tuning forks, we're field illustrators, and we use these practices of breath control, either yoga, tai chi, meditation, to clear the mind, to liberate the canvas, and through the acts of extraction and precipitation, the extricationalist captures the nonlinear right now. So, going beyond the existence of what the regular eye sees. So, the past is not a memory, it is a present frequency. And we revisit the history of an object to pull its ghost lines into the right now. And we prove that nothing is ever truly lost, only extricated from the standard perception. So all is right now, and it's a chronological bleed, and it's a sacred stillness, and it's also an instantaneous frequency, like existing in one meditative vacuum. Um, so that is what we're dealing with. Like the meditative vacuum, the modes of deconstruction, extraction, and we're also talking about the unified precipitation, which allows things to emerge from the void, balancing the literal and the energetic to make this juxtaposed composition from a blank piece of paper or empty room or blank canvas or from nature itself, and seeing the liquid air that ties things together as they move through space and time. We're mapping the physical syntax of how objects are chained together through their energy and through their frequency. So it's sort of like a prophetic eye, and in that, we're extricating the struggle of our existence with the ease of a unified field, and to get in touch with those energies is to also to become one with those energies, and to allow the active pulse, which is the right now, to basically bring forth an image, a psychic relay that allows us to understand this new environment of the unified field. So so we precipitate, we rain down. So it's like we move away from the representational art form, and we develop a vocabulary of textures, and that corresponds to the specific psychic resonance. Like a higher vibration, a higher abstraction, a higher impulse of extrication. Like and we exhibit this in the nonlinear gallery, which is life. So we're creating this workflow. Some things might just seem abnormal or sometimes simple, but the simple becomes a textured reality, and that texture of thought. If it's jagged, the field skin of the canvas becomes sharp and layered. If it's fluid, then the field skin becomes a wash of emergent light or colors. And this adds a profound layer of activity that could be prophetic in its last communication as a complete work. And that is called the event objective synthesis. It's like in the act of not painting the chair, we paint the act of sitting, the energy, all of these things. It could be very, very skilled, or it could be, very, very childlike in its expression. And that's what makes extricationism like a lot of fun, basically. And it's like, so, we're studying the anatomy of this new art form, and we're also dedicating ourselves to finding a new way of creating abstraction, precipitation, juxtaposition, like syntax, translation, and unified field, which carries the skin of each work in extricationism. And we're gonna get into it. We're gonna show you like what some of the artwork looks like. It's a very dedicated and humble process. Spend a lot of time writing about it and figuring it out and seeing what it really means, the art of fading and the art of returning, in the frequency map that is created by the biological conductivity of extricationalism to pull oneself apart, to build oneself back together. We are illustrators of the unseen. So let's get into it. Let's get right down to business and start to draw one word. So I've started off already by doing some breath work, clearing my mind, focusing on the canvas, which is the object of where translation is going towards, and feeling the first things that came to my mind, and these colors is what they represent. So this color has come out as a sort of energy field of blue. It kind of represents melancholy, not necessarily sadness, because the melancholy is sort of like this desire of wanting to be, like whole out of a sense, like out of a situation that has happened. You feel sometimes when you're victorious, you feel a certain form of shame. You don't necessarily need to feel that shame. Or you feel a necessity to explain yourself. You really don't need to explain yourself. But what you need to have is sort of like tear of energy. It's very light on the page. We'll get better shots for you. Being takes on its own sort of identity on the page. When it seems centric, it will not be centric. But it will be what it looks like. Quite simple. It'll be a whole lot more complex when, the further we get into it. So this has become the objective reality. This has become the object. Also within the cadence of the first manifestation of thought, there was also, in the middle of this river was this blackness, it sort of represents the Dantine. It represents the valley of the void, non-thought. Also, the Dantine is sort of the midway point between earth and the supernatural elements, and or heaven is, as some might call it. It is just within that. It shapes reality, and out of this emotional blue, it becomes like a universal relay that encapsulates the emotion and kind of like negates its ability to become anything else but a pool of energy, and it to start to ground itself into a storyline of events, and those events aren't really necessarily linear. So once you get an object, you go back to the framework of non-thought, and whatever comes in your mind is what starts to bunch itself together in the drawing or in the painting or whatever. And usually, you don't want to kind of draw solid objects if they come into your mind. You kind of want to abstract them, but sometimes that is the abstraction. They just come out as what they relay themselves to come out. So I saw a Q-tip. We're gonna sort of draw that. It's on this side of the panel. Sometimes you can draw, you can make a relationship with what you're drawing based on like the tools in which you're using. Like if in your mind it tells you to use chalk, or if in your mind it tells you to use paint. It's based on what it will do once it hits the level of communication. Like it'll bleed and blend. It'll start to create its own image within the abstraction, and that is for due reasons. It makes sense that these things will happen inside the course of whatever it is that you're drawing or bringing into existence. And so it can abstract and fade itself in and out of the reality of the painting itself to be frequency and energy more so than just an object. And like I said, sometimes an object will form. It just depends on what you see psychically. And don't be afraid of the first thing that pops in your mind, because that's the point. The point is to draw what you see. Even if you can't draw that well, attempt to draw it. But try to keep it in the framework of the space in which you've seen it on the paper or on the canvas, because that's the height, and width of that object. So it's like, this is the height of the width of that Q-tip. But, this is what it looks like. If I go back, I clear my mind again, and I see this red tic-tac-toe board and a horse. So there's a horse, and it's not going to be the best looking horse drawn in the world. It just won't be. You know what I mean? But it represents this animal that is moving through the painting. And, even if you see it in perfection, draw it as you can draw it. Don't fear it, because it's not gonna necessarily last in the power of the painting, because something else will take place. Something else will take place in its place, always, because this is an abstraction. This is not a literal. It's not going to be as literal as you think it's going to be. It's going to be an abstraction. So, working on this course a little bit better. Bringing it into reality. And even if you want, hell, you might want to, or heaven said, you might want to make this horse as literal as you possibly can, because that's who you are as an artist. Maybe that's, the psychic energy which is drawn upon you. But, at the same time,
if we're holding on to the material value of what we see, we might not be able to clear that object from our mind, and you want to clear it from your mind, and it takes up the space in which it takes up, and it's like, because it's psychic information, it's going to deal with who you are and how you are on the plane in which you are, to give like a bigger understanding. And I'll show you a completed work after this to show you what I am referencing and how these things go down. So, seeing green splotches. So it's crazy. Give yourself some peace. Give yourself some peace. That things happen for a reason. Just give yourself some peace. Come back. The things in their forms in which they occur. It's good to write them down because, like I said, color does not have one definite meaning all the time. It doesn't. It won't. It'll mean totally different things at different times. So the red definitely means like blood is a sense of tragedy. The horse, of course, meaning like decay of the body. It also has a sort of like a dietary meaning, like the green is sort of like a joyous sense of release through death. And basically, I guess fundamentally, probably going back to nature as a solid object, like just leaving the body and going where it needs to be. However you feel like coloring this, whether it's with crayon or with pencil, colored pencil, or feel free, but like make sure you to check with your psychic senses first. In the times of building these things, like, you will have a lot of information roll through your mind. Ignore that information and get the first task done. Get the first task organized, because that is the first psychic relay. Because we're tuning. We're coming in tune with sound and images. Everything within that relay is explained in the subject matter. So when it's translated later, you understand. You want to kind of like build to the center, but not too much to the center, because things are where they relate themselves to be more so than they are like in the importance of how we understand it to be. Because this is, like I said, this is an abstract. And you breathe in, you calm your mind, you get centered, you feel the energy from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, sort of meeting in the middle. As the breath calms the thoughts, you go back into the peace, you look at the peace, you meditate yourself, you calm down a little bit, and you start to come up with what it is that needs to happen. And it's definitely defined by what's in that moment. What lives in that moment is an abstract piece. You know what I mean? It's like, and even when the so-called subject matter of the piece itself could be torturous, it could be dangerous, it could be It could be living, it could be dead. It has sort of like, like every aspect of it is based on what you saw and what you see. And if you remember a little bit more of the aspects of what you originally saw, don't hesitate to fix parts that are broken, because they need to exist, because they have a definite meaning. Seeing things as they complete themselves. See more blue, giving space, rising more space between objects. Bending out of this normal space. So a horse-type creature. In a state of being, it looks like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it looks like whatever. But, like I said, it's not meant to prevail as a focal image. And, also seeing some black storm coming in on this side of the canvas. It already has a mental relay, of various different conversations, various different voices. Whether those voices understand what the painting is about or not, it really doesn't matter. Because some people will see a direct correlation of what they see done versus like someone who's come in from nowhere and visualized something that has happened. There's also a noose. So basically, the process is always going to be different than the truth behind the end result, because that is the basic main goal anyway, is to have a clear definition that is different from what you think you visualize in a moment. And everything has this sort of like code of identities within itself to talk about whatever it needs to talk about as itself. It has its own sort of like map and key without really trying to create one. It creates itself. And objects are not objects, but they're a reinforcement of the process of coming to a unified field of movement and expression in an abstract piece. There's not a literal piece, this is an abstract piece. So it's like, like in those abstractions of the motions of what can and what cannot exist in space, they start to lose a definition as a thing, but they become color, they become insight of that process of So it's a mental relay. It's a creating of a skin of identities. There's a it moves through its moods, of ever-changing moods, which it has as an art form. This is an art form, and in that form is the unified skin of the unified field, and it'll make sense of what it wants to make sense of, and dispense what it needs to dispense, and it's unapologetic, very, very mean, very, very, very. Basically, like, it does what it wants to do. It doesn't care if it's recognized by the artist itself, because it has sort of like a relationship with the ignorant viewer, like the person who has not seen the process even, you know what I mean? Like more so than those who are hypnotized by the process, which they see. Because there's a definite abstract. So the noose is looking pretty sturdy in itself, but I'm pretty sure the more we dive into this painting, the more that will dissipate into a more constructed reality of what is being transferred as knowledge. So sit back. The white is actually coming through as just white at this point. As it starts to extricate itself from the image of Q-tip. Blending of the imagery as it starts to solidify itself as where the white wants to go on the painting is an abstract. And it's okay if it bleeds with other colors, because that's sort of the point. It's an abstract painting. I mean, you can, if you feel like, through definition of psychic relay,
that information needs to be more solid, then do so. You know, but most of the time, it's meant to bleed. It's meant to resonate. It means to have no real direction,
and bring about like a completely different feeling from the original state of what was originally drawn. Where the light is sort of like a plea for innocence, and sort of like a communication of, you know, like the news is definitely talking about like the dead, you know, people who died over the years through hanging. But I'm pretty sure that even that shall pass. Even that reality shall pass. Maybe not. Maybe it'll stay. Be more of a guide for a stronger consciousness. See some browns coming back in. Brown sort of like wants to be treated with a little bit more respect. One of the layers. Because, you know, it feels like in the times, I guess in our times, in different forms of browns, different ideas of brown, even to be layered in this area, to strike the loose and the horse. To make a bigger connection with this side of the campus. So sometimes clairvoyant drawings, you might get a lot of images. And if you can draw those images and you feel like drawing those images, feel free to. You know what I mean? Like don't be afraid of doing that, because maybe that's a little bit of part of this, the extrication from the canvas and from like the idea that's in the mind that's sleeping in a universal consciousness. You know what I mean? Like to be more in tune with the frequency of how you're feeling, you know, or like what's being revealed, you know, will take its energy, its shape, and its power and manifest itself for you. Sometimes, you know, usually you want to go straight through a piece and not really keep it lingering, but because of, you know, it's hard to sort of like, you know, draw a crayon over that paint. So you might want to, you know, wait for it to dry to continue your application. But this, I'm not going to wait. It's going to continue because that's how the sparks are streaming in these sort of like lines. And black is definitely coming through as much as it possibly can to create dimension and boundaries and to set forth like basically a calling of ideas to where things should not be. You know, it's like, you know, the idea of that horse, like what was that all about? You know what I mean? Like there's no telling, but you know, it's gonna give sort of like a, you know, a predominant area of black in this painting that is abstracted from the original context of like that blue river of melancholy shame after a victory. So right now, it's you know, you have this sort of like this circle drawing in all of this energy, whereas the red seems like it is it's sort of like this fleeting feeling of dominance from out of like this voidal like space, whereas this is emergence as safety, but it's really started off as danger, and that sense of security is somewhat false in like, you know, the major theme of the painting itself is you know, to just disjar your mind away from the things that are hidden. The things in that sense, it's sort of like saying that, like, you know, like the foundation of what we're comfortable with is sort of based on the turmoil and strife of those playing the game. Their blood is on, you know, is under our feet as dirt and sand and sediment. So, you know, inside of these guides of understanding is where we're at, trying to figure it out. Also, seeing this blue coming through, activating as a steward for the other unseen blue to cover up as black. And in a messy definition of even where black exists on my fingers, it's saying, still paint me over this area. And it's scary because, you know, it becomes like a child painting. Like, you know, it's almost embarrassing and shit, you know, like, but it's very much a psychic relay of colors and not necessarily like, you know, an object found, you know, and it's really, it has like some sexual feelings to it, but it's a system of penetration and like, also this vomitous like idea of like getting rid of, you know, and also this emergence of becoming, whereas this yellow is like trying to you know, get out of hiding to see what is natural and what is unnatural in the dedication of this piece. So right now it's like, you know, it's very much you know, this is like the breast, and this is sort of like, you know, like nature transforming the body into multiple different forms, whereas it's like, you know, the face of the past, your carnated self, is going in through this river of melancholy thought, and the voidnal is shaping all of these things, and it's like this eternal growth of inside yourself. I mean, you can say what you want to say. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You can even yell bullshit if you wanted to. But like in the real reality, that's what it's becoming. And I've seen some red. The red said afraid. No, the red said like call me into existence. Where I'm at, and call me into existence, see how it's going. So like, this is what's happening. This is where I'm at. And sort of like the body transforming into this pound sign of, you know, like, which is like, you know, idea of like maybe like a digital world, like new form of currency, juxtaposed to the harmony of the body, reframing itself in sort of like this crunch of post egotistical formations, like where the cotton must grow before it's a Q-tip, and where industrialization ends, where the earth becomes barren. There's nothing. You know what I mean? Like in the time of creating the form of bodies, is that understanding inside of the vehicle of our lives, where this purple is suggesting this false security. It's also peeking through with the winds of current of time, saying that you cannot on this crest of horizons, you cannot hide what is obviously blaring out amongst the trees. And this grounding of these earth tones in that reality is saying it's saying a lot. You know what I mean? It's cussing and fussing, and it's bleeding like this deeper idea of like what is savory and what is unsavory, what is ideal and what is non-ideal. Now, the piece is complete. It's done. It's over. All those things are explained in the illustrator's field guide manual of what you felt and what you've seen. Now, someone else, when they're looking at this, like, what would they say? What would they see? You know what I mean? Like, you don't really, like, you don't know. Some people's like, that's just some bullshit, you know? But to you, it created a mass of the understanding of where the process of nature is going into, which demands further understanding of your recess of water, because the victory is what? Extinction? Or becoming one with the void and traveling out from the noose of industrialism. Because the horse is, behold, the pale horse is dead. This is what it's about. It's not about building and creating like these paintings that resemble some creature, some form of realistic exploitation. It becomes like this sort of like a firewall against those who don't use their imagination. We don't necessarily want them around. So that's the deeper dialogue. If you watch any of my other abstract paintings, you can tell they're extremely different. Extremely different. I'll show you. To these small pieces like this one, which definitely have understanding of what some of these things are physically. You know what I mean? Like they leave an impression. You know what I mean? Like you can feel it. You can see more. So it's not a dialogue. It's not the same dialectics is that. Like fucking orange skeletal astronaut. You know what I mean? Like things like that. It's just they're direct. What that means. This is a new one. This one, this is about cognitive cognitive relay. It's very much poignant what it is, what it means. This one's definitely it's like a waterfall of colors like that. Pretty much what it is. It's not that deep even. You know what I mean? Like
the fingerprint of humanity. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like they're very direct. Being born. You know, orange is my favorite color. You know, being born from out of the cosmic or the Vajra. Very much different from this style of painting. Very different. It's a very different call. Extricationism. And it's done psychically and playfully and with a joyous sense of creativity to be field illustrate. Now there's different types of psychic communication. Some people might enjoy direct images, but this is fun. To not have a thought of where color goes, to not have a definition of color is different from how I usually make abstraction. That's why I started on paper first before I went to the canvas just to experiment. Because a lot of things I have, they have a literal interpretation. This doesn't start off with a literal interpretation. Interpretation is based on what came to my mind while it was being created, and is demonstrated like a definite more powerful resource than what is known. So yeah, that is extricationism. That is the new form of art expression which I'm in right now, which I created, and I feel good about it. I'm not gonna compromise my goals and in making it. I'm gonna continue to be fruitful in it, and see where it takes me. Blessings. Yeah, thank you.